Hi there, thanks for joining us for today's video. Please make sure that you click subscribe to keep up to date with all of our content. This will include short how-to videos, webinars and demonstrations of all of our products. Check out the links in the description below to check out any content related to today's video, and we hope that you enjoy it.
So thanks for coming along to this our webinar on a refresher on the new iSeries, an introduction to the new PCI eye tracker, and then a focus on some of the new things we've brought out with the IS5TD addition to those eye trackers, which make them very specific and appropriate for assistive technology users, including the biggie, and that's outdoor eye tracking. So I don't know whether to stop sharing my screen, but the things that we're going to be talking about, is this big enough in small to see?
Yeah, we can see that.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to be talking about the PCI eye tracker, and then the iSeries, which is the i13 and the i16 devices. So I'm going to do a quick refresher of some of the key features of the iSeries. And this will be things that you might know already, but maybe some stuff that you didn't. The iSeries has been out since October 2019, but obviously this has been a funny year, so a year and a half really, so we've not had as much chance to get out and see everybody to demonstrate it firsthand. So we thought it'd be useful to do this session. So in terms of the devices, if you knew our previous iSeries, that was the i12, which is a 12-inch device. That's been replaced by the i13, which is a 13-inch screen. And then the i15, which was the larger device, has been replaced by the i16. Now, some big differences is that we switched from a 3:4 screen ratio to a 16:9. It's the equivalent of moving from when we move from sort of the squarer TVs to the flat screen TVs. Hence the increase in inches. Your screen estate is actually very similar between the 12-inch and the 13 and the 15-inch and the 16-inch. But we find that the reduced height or the screen ratio means that it's actually better for when you're driving or face-to-face communication, because it's easier to see over the top of the device and still interact with the eye tracker. That wasn't such an issue on the i12, but the i15 device was quite tall. So the i16 not being as high as the i15 is very helpful in that sense. And then, of course, a lot of the software and media that you're playing on your device, because it's a standard computer as well as a specialized communication aid, has been designed nowadays for the widescreen format. So as I say, it's a 16:9 aspect ratio. We've gone from XVGA to full HD. We now have on the screen, I don't know if this will come across on the small image, but we now have on the screen an anti-glare coating. So it's a matte finish rather than a gloss finish on the screen. And I shouldn't say this, but previously, you could do your lipstick in the previous generation of iSeries. And now there are some people who get disturbed by the reflection, and it's much, much better. It's also very, very tough. So this is tough Gorilla Glass. So that adds to the durability. Talking about the durability, we've done a lot to improve how they stand the knocks and bumps of everyday life. So in terms of the drop testing of the devices, the previous generation of i12 had been drop tested to 0.8 meters and the i15 to 0.6 meters. This has been improved. I'm looking at the Americanism in this slide. This has been improved to 1.1 meter on the i13 and 0.8 meter on the i16. There's other parts of the design, so it's a ruggedized chassis, but you'll also see probably, go back a slide. I don't know if you can see on this slide here, they've got what are called crash corners. I don't know if you can see my mouse moving, but up in the top corner there and here. So if it does land face down, it's less likely to damage the screen. The device also has ingress protection, which is protection against dust and moisture. So that was something that was in the previous i12 and i15. We had an ingress protection of 43. Now this has increased to an IP rating of 54. Basically, this means that don't take it in the bath with you, but it's not going to be a problem if it, as long as you've got the sort of rubber flaps closed, it's not going to be a problem if you get caught out in the rain or drinks get knocked over around the device. A nice feature on the devices are these buttons at the bottom. So they're called adaptive buttons. These buttons are both touch accessible or eye gaze accessible, and allow you to assign your favorite functions to those buttons. So 2 of them are for volume control and 2 of them are programmable for your favorite functions. This means that you can put a function there like pause eye gaze, or you could bring up track status window or speak message window. And it's an off-screen button that allows you to access those functions without taking up valuable button space on your communication page set. So effectively saving 2 buttons, really. The great thing about them is that because you've got separate functions for gaze and touch, it could be that for the eye gaze user, it's set up for when they look at the button, it pauses eye gaze, or the square one could be set up to speak the message window. But for the communication partner, those buttons could be set up with different functions for touch, and that could be something like bring up the track status window, or go to home page or something like that. So depending on what's needed, you can set those up separately. So the places where they're set is hardware settings for the touch function, and then your the eye gaze functions for those buttons is set up in like Snap or Communicator 5. Another great function is the partner window. So this is the ability to have your message displayed on the back of the device. You can see there where someone's typing "stay positive" on Communicator 5. I'll just do a similar demo. It might be very small, but you can see on the back screen, I'm going to type "I" and "want," and then go into food and drink, and then say pizza. And hopefully you'll see that there's a message displayed on the back there. You can also choose how your partner screen works. You can either have it putting the message up word by word or letter by letter as you're typing it, so basically mirroring the message window. Or if you find that as a communication aid user makes people anticipating what you're saying and maybe not, getting in correctly or cutting you off, then you can have it with 3 dots displaying. So that's what's called indicating typing mode. So I don't know if you can see the 3 dots on my screen there. And then you can either have it so it's just the 3 dots, or it actually displays the message when I click on speak. We really think this partner window is great for encouraging face-to-face communication. I know personally I've been guilty of it so many times, and I use the excuse that I'm a professional and I need to see what's going on with the access method. But even sometimes I'm just intrigued at the magic of a communication system. So I've met users and then caught myself, checked myself, if you like, because I've sort of sidled round to, behind the user and look what's going on the screen. It's really quite rude. You're in somebody's personal space and you're standing over their shoulder. So we think this communication partner screen is a great thing for fostering more natural face-to-face communication. But it's also useful for allowing you to communicate in those instances where maybe the volume isn't appropriate. So you could be at a play or something like that, and shouting out on your communication device would be difficult. And it's kind of like the equivalent of whispering. Sound on the devices. I won't be able to replicate this, but the sound on the iSeries is amazing. It's really loud and really clear. I'll just show you. You won't get it because we're reliant on your speakers. I
want pizza.
But that's at 12% volume. If I increase it a bit and then go to
I want pizza.
44% volume and increase it a bit more, and 70% volume. Even if I pump it up to 100% volume, it gets very loud but very clear, and that's a key thing. It's retaining how clear it is. There's no reverberation or distortion as you get to those loud volumes. You're going to be able to go, if we can ever get together again in a busy pub or a football match, you'll be able to be heard and understood clearly because of the volume of the device. We spent a lot of time when we had sound specialists actually helping with the development of the speakers to make sure that they were optimized not for music, but for speech, and there's different requirements there. However, I should say our last Christmas party, which was in December 2019, we had it in the office and we didn't have a speaker or anything like that. We just used Spotify on the iSeries and it was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, turn it up to the top and put it next to other AAC devices and see how it compares. And I have to say, you'll find that the clarity and the crispness of that sound stays intact even when you get up to the top when it's really, really loud. Weight, we've done a lot to bring the weight down on the previous generation of I series. So the i13 is just 2.2 kilograms, which is 22% lighter than the previous i12. But perhaps even more impressive, the i16 is just 2.6 kilograms, which is 32% weight reduction on the i15 devices. So you're getting more functions, more speed, louder device, extra great tools in there, but it's less weight. And all that combines to make it easier to mount and easy to handle and move around when you're changing positions or moving it from one place to another. The eye tracker in, well, both the I series and the new PCI is based on our sister company's Tobii Tech IS5 platform. I'm going to spend a bit of time later in the presentation saying how we've taken that IS5 platform and turned it into the IS5 TD platform, which is the Tobii Dynavox equivalent, which is about meeting the needs of assistive technology users. But it's a huge step forward just with the IS5 platform. So it's basically 5 years of extra development, extra data collection, extra improvements in technology since the last generation of eye tracker. So it's our most robust eye tracker yet in terms of performance, accuracy, the number of people that it's able to track out of the box, the percentage of the population, if you like. Other great improvements, though, is that it's got a much faster recovery time than previous generations of eye tracker. So the recovery time is how long it takes from when you look away from the screen and then look back to the screen, how long it takes for the system to say, oh, John's back, I'll start eye tracking again. Because it's so quick at recovering, it means that if you are the kind of person who goes outside of the head track box because of involuntary head movements, it's going to find you really, really quick without, having to wait for that sort of few milliseconds. That feels a long time if you're waiting for something to happen. So try that. Move out of the zone and back into the zone and see how quick it recovers. So that's the Tobii IS5 platform. In terms of the specifications of the devices, it's a fast computer. It's got 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabytes solid state storage, and it has a 7th generation i5 processor. One of the things that we do is we often find ourselves in scenarios where maybe users have got different devices, they're trialing different devices, and you guys, if you're involved in assessments, assessment services, put your favorite AAC software in the startup folder, turn the I series on alongside other devices and see which one loads your AAC software further. We're really, really pleased with the startup time of the device and the speed of use, really. In terms of included software, it comes with SnapCore first. So our symbol-based or text-based AAC software, which includes really clever stuff like a BoardMaker player integration and also full Google Assistant, so you can control your environment, ask Google questions, etc. It's got Communicator 5, which is our flagship text-based AAC software. That includes our accessible apps, which I'll go into in a moment, but that gives you access to things like Facebook, Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, etc. For desktop control, we have our control software, which is the update to the previous generation, which would have been Windows Control, or on the I series, it was Tobii Gaze Interaction software. We'll have a quick talk about that. We also give you 10 activities within the Magic IFX software from Sensory Guru. And you get other software, including Pathways for Core First, BoardMaker Student Center, Snapscene, all, and Discover Tobii Dynavox. In terms of accessories, this doesn't sound a lot, but you're getting the power supply. You're getting a Connect-It mounting plate. We did have some news that's coming out probably in June that we're going to have improved compatibility for DAISY large and small face mounting plates, but that's kind of not officially released, but it is coming out. And this one is amazing. This is the adjustable base. So you can see it on the picture and maybe see it in my hands. This little piece of plastic with a few magnets on it has put a big dent in our tabletop mount sails. So I don't know if you've ever been to see someone who had the previous generation of iSeries. Depending on the height of them, you want to optimize the position and the viewing angle of the eye tracker to the height of the user, so it's pointing at their eyes. So I've been to see a number of kids where they're quite little, so they're sitting at the dining room table, for example, or on the wheelchair tray or something, and they've ended up having a DVD case at the back or a book or something at the back of the device just to tilt it forward and get a better viewing angle. So this piece of plastic is your very clever DVD case. It allows you effectively to have 5 different angles for the device. So you can put this straight on the table, that's angle 1, or you can put this with the wedge shape at the front to tilt it back. So if somebody's taller, if they're really tall, you can pull out the extra leg at the front. If they're shorter, you can put the wedge shape at the back, and again, pull out the kickstand to tilt it even further forward. Very, very innovative, very, very innovative. Oh, that's loud. Very, very clever. And like I say, it's eating into our table mount sail. So I think this is absolutely wonderful. It's very clever. Let's talk about some of the added value, though, that you get with the iSeries. So the first one is computer control. So as I mentioned, this is what's replacing Windows Control or TGIS for controlling your computer's desktop. It has a simplified mode. So if someone was using mouse emulation or gaze point to play games like Look to Learn or the inclusive technology eye gaze learning curve, then you can just move the mouse about with the simplified version of computer control. Or if you want full desktop access, then computer control is your tool. So this will allow you to do everything from left click, right click, double click, drag and drop, scrolling a page. It's got a continuous mode, which has tools for maybe if you're doing artwork and you want to do like continuous click and drag, continuous hold and drag, or continuous left click. And the way it works actually is rather than on the previous generation where you had a toolbar on the right-hand side and you would maybe choose what you wanted to interact with and then look to the side and see the bar and maybe choose left click and then it would zoom in to where you wanted to go. That worked really well for some people, but for other people it was quite highly cognitively demanding, caused a lot of anxiety over accidental clicks, and also it was dependent on using, if someone was having eye tracking areas, the weakest area of eye tracking for you will always be on the extremes or the edges of the screen. And we were actually requiring people to go to the side of the screen to interact with things. What computer control does, it brings all of the interaction into the center. So whatever icon you want to click on, you would look at it first, look at the activation button, and then this pop-up radial menu that you can see on the screen appears in front of you, and that gives you all of the choices. But the great thing is it puts whatever you're trying to interact with into the center of the screen. So it brings a magnified version of, say, the recycle bin, which might have been in the top left-hand corner, into the center of the screen. And from that, you can choose whether you're going to do a right click, left click, double click, or drag. The other part of the added value is the accessible apps for Communicator 5. So these come with the iSeries, but also if you buy Communicator 5 with a PCI eye tracker, you get these accessible apps. And these will give you access to all of the key streaming, social, entertainment, leisure apps and tools that we're all wanting to use: YouTube, Spotify, Netflix, Zoom, text messaging, Kindle, Google Translate, Instagram, MSN News, Google Calendar, Facebook Messenger, Facebook itself, Audible for your spoken books, WhatsApp Messenger, and then more recently, Twitch and TikTok. The way this works, it basically has a very clever browser on the right-hand side of the screen, and then a version of the Communicator 5 software in a reduced size page set on the left-hand side of the screen that allows you to control, with that, whatever your access method is, be that eye gaze, switch, or touch, controls the app on the right-hand side of the screen. But what's clever about it is the dynamic page sets. So the Communicator 5 will detect whether you're viewing a photo gallery, and it will give you the tools to interact with that photo gallery. So swiping left and right between the gallery. If you follow a YouTube video link, it will bring up the YouTube player. Or if you go to a web page, that content will change depending on what you're doing, the tools on the side. And that uses this technology we call deep linking. So you'll often find that somebody has sent you a link to a funny video on YouTube, but they've sent it via text message, or they've sent it via WhatsApp or Facebook. This deep linking technology allows you to effectively activate that link in WhatsApp, for example, and then it will go to the relevant page. I'll give you a little video that shows you these accessible apps. Let me know if the sound doesn't come through. Stay social with our accessible Facebook app. And there's one for Instagram too. Keep up with the latest lip sync and dance challenges on TikTok.
Is he on the top?
And bring out your inner gamer while watching streams on Twitch.
You helped.
What do I have up to DVD?
Watch your favourite cat videos full screen with accessible YouTube.
Wrong. You hired
And keep up with all the latest shows in Netflix. Control your music with accessible Spotify. Keep in touch with friends with messaging services including WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and Android SMS. If someone sent you a link, perhaps to a YouTube video or a web page, don't worry, you can follow this directly within your messaging service. You can even make video calls to your friends with accessible Facebook Messenger. Hi Cam, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you doing, John?
I'm great, thanks. I'll leave you to it.
Oh, see you later.
You could read your books on our accessible Kindle app, or you could listen to your books on the accessible Audible app.
The Egg That Knew Too Much by Steve Burge. Read by Tobii Jones.
Eggs, eggs, eggs.
You can also take part in meetings with accessible Zoom, translate messages with accessible Google Translate, keep up with the news with accessible MSN, and keep on top of your appointments with accessible Google Calendar. So hopefully you could see what was going on there with the accessible apps in terms of the browser on the right-hand side and then the control, but you can switch it to the left-hand side if that's going to be more accessible for a user, but the control from Communicator 5 on the other side. Okay, so that's the new i series. The technology, though, in terms of the eye tracking within the new i series is now also available in a peripheral eye tracker. So previously we had the PCI Mini and the PCI Plus. So the PCI Mini was a smaller device that would run on screens up to 19-inch, and the PCI Plus was a longer device that would run on screens up to 27 inches. These have both been replaced by the new PCI, so this device. It's a great size. It's halfway, well, not halfway. It's a bit longer than the PCI Mini and a bit shorter than the PCI Plus. And it's almost perfectly designed to sit under a standard tablet, such as a Microsoft Surface or a laptop computer. So it's one device now that does both the smaller screens and the larger screens. It's just called the PCI. So in the PCI, and I'm going to go into this a little bit, it has different illuminators. So you see those when you're using eye tracking, you see those flashing red lights. They're the illuminators. It's got illuminators for dark pupil tracking and You've got the eye tracker in the center, but you also have the bright pupil tracking illuminators just next to the eye tracking camera. Like I say, I'm going to explain bright pupil tracking and dark pupil tracking in a little while. And then we've got a camera in there which also supports easy login using Windows Hello. Again, I'll explore that in a second. All of the processing for what's going on with the eye tracker is done on the device itself using the eye chip. So it's not going to take the processing time of your laptop or tablet. So in terms of what you get, you're getting the dark and light tracking. You're getting the same computer control interface for either complex desktop access or simple desktop access with simplified continuous mode for like look to learn. As I say, it's one device rather than two separate devices, and it will work on screens up to 27 inches. It supports outdoor eye tracking, which the new i series does, and I'm going to go into great length about that in a moment. If you've got Communicator 5, you get free licenses for the Communicator 5 accessible apps that we just watched the video about. It's got all of the enhancements to accuracy that come with the latest generation of eye trackers. And as I said, it supports Windows Hello. But this is the exciting stuff. This is how we take a standard eye tracker, because for those of you who don't know, Tobii Dynavox has a parent company and we have sister companies. And we've got sister companies, Tobii Pro and Tobii Tech. And Tobii Tech develop eye trackers for use in different areas. So we do stuff like eye tracking goggles, so we can track people's maybe experience as they go around a shop and see what shelves they're looking at. But we also do eye trackers or peripheral eye trackers, which are for gaming, for example. So you'll see gamers who are playing, I don't know, Tom Clancy's The Division. I'm not up to date with what games. I know, I think it was in, oh, my mind's gone completely blank. I forgot which game it is. I won't go into that. But yeah, you see games where the experience is enhanced by tracking your eyes. So as you hear a noise off to your side on your headphones, you might look to the side and it will spin the camera around for you. Or you'll also get things like aim assist to help you with shooting or bringing your gun to the right place if you're shooting somebody. So that's the Tobii Tech and the IS5 platform. But the needs of somebody with an assistive technology user or an AAC user are completely different to the users of a gaming eye tracker. So what is IS5 TD? So it's work that we're doing to make the eye trackers specific for the needs of the assistive technology user or the AAC user, as opposed to the gaming user. The first thing we did was to improve eye tracking performance when outdoors or in brightly lit conditions. And I do remember my first day in this job nearly 6 years ago. I was in our Sheffield office and I was sitting on a bright sunny day right next to the window, and I thought, I've took the wrong job. I just can't do eye tracking at all. And then Rob, my boss, just said, just move your chair to there and then see what happens. And suddenly I could do eye tracking. And that's great to know that, but it's also a shame that if you're a user with a disability, you can't sit in the sun and, you know, just warm yourself in the sun and watch people go by because it's too sunny and it's affecting your eye tracking. Or you can't go outside. You know, we've all wanted to go outside and get some fresh air while we've been locked in. And imagine having to go outside and not take your voice with you when you do so. So part of what we've done as Tobii Dynavox, as opposed to Tobii, is worked on improving that outdoor usability. And we also enabled the Windows Hello, which I'll explore in great depth. I should say that the IS5 TD, which is both software and firmware update to our eye trackers, is not available in any of our consumer eye trackers or third-party eye trackers. So the outdoor eye tracking, etc., and the Windows. I don't know about Windows Hello, actually, but the outdoor eye tracking and the other features we'll bring to IS5 TD are exclusive to Tobii Dynavox eye trackers. So this looks like my kids, really. Apart from it, they are doing their revision, they're being good, but they love their gaming, and they've both got PCs now as well as Xboxes. And the life of my kids upstairs in their rooms they like to have their curtains drawn. They're never going out, they're peering at the screen, but they can also use the keyboard and the mouse. And the eye tracker for them, if they were using eye tracking, is just an extra peripheral. It's not the be all and end all of how they use the system. It's something that it maybe enhances their experience, but it's not their whole experience. They're not having to use it outside. They're not having to have it as a portable solution like these users. The difference between these two sets of eye gaze users and these pictures is profound. Where they want to use their device, how they want to use their device, the fact that they're exclusively using the device and not reaching for a keyboard, etc. And I think most importantly, the fact that that device is going to be used outdoors, indoors. That's what people want. They want to be able to use their device wherever they are. That's the most. And these are official Tobii Tech and Tobii Dynavox promotional images. So, these are the two type of clients that we're talking about. So it just shows how different our client group is. So what we thought is, instead of promoting Tobii eye tracking, so if you had an old PCI Go, you would have seen that it was branded on it Tobii. It didn't say Tobii Dynavox. Instead, we're now doing Tobii Dynavox eye tracking. And this is about taking that fantastic eye tracking platform that our colleagues over at Tobii Tech have developed in the IS5. They're constantly striving to improve the eye tracking. They're capturing eye tracking data from many more people all the time. They're using the latest technology. They're improving the algorithms so that the precision, robustness, accuracy across a broader range of people is always improving. But what we did is we asked the market, if you like, so feedback from you guys, professionals, users, etc., is what is it about an eye tracker that's specific for the assistive technology or AAC user? So customers, professionals, and experts steered us and helped us decide what our priority were in terms of developing the IS5 TD to improve it. We also have users on our like user testing programs that feedback. They're real eye gaze users who use it day in, day out, all the time for everything they want to do, from talking to sending emails, going on Facebook, etc. So their feedback on what an assistive eye tracker should look like and be able to do was really important. The next thing we did was actually capture the user data. So this is targeting eye tracking data. So it's all very well saying that you've gone out and you've captured eye tracking data from thousands of different individuals, but if they're all, if you like, they're made in Sweden, if they're all blonde-haired, blue-eyed Swedes, then it's not going to be reflective of the user group that we all work with. I remember Sandra Thistlethwaite from Inclusive Technology, when they were developing their Insight software, they did some research and they found, I think it was something like 67% of users who were prime candidates for needing to use eye tracking also had some kind of associated or comorbid or additional eye condition that meant that the very people that needed to use eye tracking had problems with eye tracking. So it was stuff such as extra dilated pupils due to medication, or squints, or droopy eyelids, or nystagmus, or just all of the things that you see on a day-to-day basis with your user. So your users, that can mean that eye tracking out of the box can be challenging. So what we've done is we've gone out and we've actually met these users en masse. I was involved, for example, in taking a test bed machine out to a range of MND clinics where we saw about 20 people a day, and we just get them in and we just capture some eye data from them. I didn't really know what was going on. I just had to press some buttons on the screen while the user was looking at various things. And that went back to the developers, and other colleagues have been out to different groups of people capturing that eye data. And all of that means that we've been able to improve what's going on with the eye tracker, the eye tracker, in terms of how it's going to be able to track people with disabilities. So our priorities first for the IS5 TD have been implementing the Windows Hello for automatic logons using Face ID, and then of course the outdoor eye tracking. And this has allowed us to bring out those wonderful products that we've been looking at, the I series and the new PCI, which come with this thing we're calling the Tobii Dynavox Advantage. So I'll just explore briefly the Windows Hello. You'll find that a lot of users who have an eye tracker, they use maybe a wheelchair mounted device, and particularly when it's an adult, that device isn't just their voice, it's their everything. It's their mobile office. It's the equivalent of their mobile phone that they catch up with people on Messenger and social media. It's where they do their online banking. It's where they manage their care package, for example. It's where they send letters to or emails to loved ones. It's where they do a lot of private and confidential stuff. Now, unfortunately, assistive technology traditionally doesn't kick in until you get past the logon screen. And what that meant is that there's countless users out there who are using these devices, which are their everything, including all of their private data, their banking information, and they're having to run these devices without a password, or they're having to share their password with carers, etc., and asking somebody else to log in for them. So what we saw as a priority is implementing Windows Hello Logon. So this is a system within Windows where you can use a special camera within the device. So certain laptops will have Windows Hello Logon, but I think it's this kind of infrared camera that you use rather than the standard camera, and it logs you on using facial features. So our eye trackers now include a Windows Hello camera specifically for logging on. So this includes the PCI, the i13 and the i16, and it's going to give them that reassurance and security when they log on that they're in control of it and their data's safe. Basically, it's a function within the eye tracker. You still go into the standard place within the Windows setting to be able to activate it and set it up if you like. So that's the Windows Hello. The next thing we're going to explore is the improvements to eye tracking, and particularly the outdoor eye tracking. But before I do, it's probably important to do a little basic introduction to eye tracking, like an eye tracking 101, for example, just so some of the terms I talk about when I talk about outdoor eye tracking make sense. So the components within an eye tracker. You've all seen eye trackers, I'm sure you have, just from who you guys are. The kind of things that make up an eye tracker are the illuminators. So this is creating a pattern of near-infrared light onto the cornea somewhere. It's usually a glint. So these are the red lights that you're seeing. We also have a camera in the eye tracker. So this is taking an image of the user's eyes and those glints. Let's just talk a little bit about the illuminators and the job that they're doing, because this is important for understanding eye tracking and the challenges we face outdoors. So if you were normally, when we do a face-to-face course, I get you to look into each other's eyes at this point and see if you can see that glint, that little glint in the eye that we all get from a light source around us. So if you had a mirror or held your phone up to your face now in selfie mode, you'll see you've got a little white glint in your eye somewhere. So like on this photo here, there's a little glint in the eye, and I'm sitting next to a window, so I'm pretty sure I'll have a glint in my eye just there. Now, a glint like that is very important for eye tracking, but we don't use that glint. We don't use that glint because we don't know where that glint will be. If you move around in your, say you've got a wheelchair mounted device and you're moving around, your light source will change constantly. We don't know where that light source is going to be. The glint is what helps us locate the eye in space, if you like, so to find you. But we need the glint to come from a known light source. So we use near infrared lights transmitting from illuminators embedded in the eye tracker. You kind of see them as red lights. I should say at this point, they've been tested for safety. They don't cause in any way epileptic fits or anything like that. But just be aware, it's sending an invisible near-infrared light frequency up to your eye and casting a glint very similar to the one pictured here or there onto your eye. What we do with the eye tracker, though, and the camera, is we use that glint because it's in a static place, that light source and the relationship with your eye is static. That stays still, that glint. As you look around the screen, what's moving is the black circle of your pupil. So the camera is continually capturing data images, which the eye chip is using the clever algorithms to analyze, to measure the distance between that glint and the black circle of the pupil, to then interpret what you're looking at. So that's why the illuminators are really important. We are dependent on light for eye tracking, and it's our own light rather than ambient light that we're using. So that's why it's not a problem if you use eye tracking in the dark. I'll explain a little bit about the two types of eye tracking that we use. That picture is horrific, I must say. I don't know if it's mocked up, but do you remember when you used to take photos before smartphones sorted it all out and you put the flash on, and you'd often get red eye, which is basically a reflection caused by the flash of the sort of, all the red veins and what have you at the back of the eye that's causing that. We use two types of eye tracking throughout. We use bright pupil tracking and dark pupil tracking, so that we're always using the right eye tracking to see what's going on. The reason this exists is that different eye tracking works better for certain circumstances. And I suppose a good example, or this is completely fabricated example, but like I say, the eye trackers are developed by blonde-haired, blue-eyed Swedes. And let's just pretend that when they made these, they were tracking beautifully the blue-eyed Swedes, because there was a great contrast between where the black circle of the pupil is and the blue of the iris. But when they came to track me, who's got dark eyes, they found that actually that doesn't work so well, because it's harder to see on John with his brown eyes where the pupil ends and the iris starts. Now that's made up, obviously, but it's just an example of talking about the challenges that we can have. So the two types of eye tracking is the dark pupil eye tracking, and this is where it uses the illuminators off to the side for casting that glint, and then the camera is looking to see where the black circle of the pupil is. But then we have bright pupil tracking. So that's kind of harnessing a bit like that red eye image that you saw earlier. And what that does is it uses illuminators adjacent to the eye, to the camera, which basically create that illuminated pupil, so that if you are struggling to find where the pupil ends and the iris starts, by illuminating it, it's going to light it up. So you're actually looking for a bright pupil rather than a dark circle of a pupil. And then it measures the distance between the glint and that bright illuminated pupil. So that's the two types, dark pupil and bright pupil. And some of our competitors will do dark pupil and some will do bright pupil. And you'd say, well, which is better? They both have a different visual effect on the iris and pupil. And they both have specific benefits and work differently in different environments. For example, outdoor, dark pupil tracking is much better. Bright pupil tracking for some people can be better in controlled light conditions indoors. So to ensure stability and the best and optimal eye tracking the whole time, we have dynamic eye tracking, which switches between dark pupil and bright pupil 30 times a second. It looks at an image and says, which is the best eye tracking we should be using? Should it be dark pupil or bright pupil? And it uses the best one at any time. So which is better is a bit of a moot point, because the answer is, depending on the circumstances, one might be better than the other, and that can change. As you're rolling along in your wheelchair and you go from shade to sun or something like that, or pass a window, our eye tracker will instantly switch to the best eye tracking to match those lighting conditions. As I say, just from this image, different environments affect the eyes. So you might be working indoors, you might be working in a well-lit room, or you might be working outdoors. And you'll see that, we all know this, it's obvious, but your pupil contracts as there are, the brighter light to let less light in. But if you're in a dark environment, it's going to get wider. So we will have different experiences of eye tracking according from where you are. It's also, light, we put that in capital letters because that's the biggest thing, but also affected by things like fatigue, concentration, medication. So people on baclofen and other medication can sometimes cause the pupils to really, really expand. And you see kids that at different times of the day, they say, oh, he's great with eye tracking, like about like 1 o'clock. But then 2 o'clock, you know, after we've had lunch and all that kind of stuff, and he's had his medication, it really goes to pot. And that can be because, you know, as the medication wears off, the eye tracking experience has changed. So it could be that having 2 different calibrations for how that pupils are looking might be important. So if your environment does change, recalibration or having alternative profiles can be beneficial. So if things feel off, don't worry about recalibrating. Some people, the same calibration might work wherever they are, but if it isn't working, then you can recalibrate. If somebody's like, you know, playing look to learn or on a grid size of, I don't know, 10 buttons or something like that, it's less of an issue. It's when you want really precise typing on a small keyboard that you need to be really concerned about this. So let's talk about the challenge. The challenge is that eye tracking doesn't work outdoors. And that's something that has been the holy grail of eye tracking for so many years. You know, I'd go and see people and they were like, does it work outdoors? Unfortunately, it doesn't. And this is something that's shared across our competitors. I remember going to an exhibition, all us suppliers across assistive technology, we see each other on the circuit, if you like, of the exhibitions. And we went to this one in a stately home, and I think it was called the Orangery. I don't know how you say that word, but it was basically a big, huge conservatory on the back of a stately home. So it was just, you were basically in a huge greenhouse, and we were all in there. And I couldn't get anyone eye tracking. It was a gloriously sunny day. And then I went round to, you know, my fellow eye tracking suppliers and I said, how's it going? I've not managed to get a single. And everyone was saying the same thing. We just couldn't do eye tracking. And this was meaning that users didn't have a voice as soon as they went outside. I remember this Facebook post from Kevin O'Brien on it's a public Facebook post. It's one in the Tobii Dynavox community, so I'm happy sharing it. And he basically said my voice was locked in as soon as I went outside. So all the people who wanted to do eye tracking when we couldn't go out, we couldn't enjoy things, and we couldn't meet people inside their own home. Our only choice in our groups at 6 and what have you were to go into people's gardens. And people and AAC users using eye gaze couldn't do that if they didn't have a device that supported outdoor eye tracking. In terms of the challenges, it's worth exploring these. So these can include overexposed images, false glints. So this is where glints are being caused by the sun, which basically is a conflict between the ambient lighting, so the sun, and the light our illuminators emit. So an overexposed image. So this is my colleague Anders, and he's took an image right in front of the sun, and you can see it's hard to make out those facial features. So this makes it difficult for the eye tracker to identify the area of interest, the region of interest. What should the eye tracker be looking at? Can it even find the eyes? Even if you can find the eyes, I mean, I suppose Anders is squinting here as well because of the sun, but even if you can find the eyes when you've got that bright sunlight, it's going to be trickier to get the details you need from the eyes. In terms of that, the science behind how the eye trackers work as well. In terms of the light frequencies that are coming from the sun's obviously very strong. It's much stronger than, you know, household lamps and the lights above your head and what have you. But a big part of the sunlight is in the frequency range that I talked about those illuminators. Well, we're using near infrared light. We're using 800 to 900 nanometers. And that's in the sunlight, and it makes up a huge part of what sunlight is made up of. So we're getting this we're competing with the sun, basically. So there's a conflict between ambient lighting and the light we emit from our eye trackers. And, you know, at a very starting point, bright pupil doesn't work well. Bright pupil tracking doesn't work well when you're outside in the sun. So what did we do about it? So we did a lot of work doing image collection from sunnier climes. I think this was a scam, but my colleagues in Sweden chose to go in January over to sunny Malaga, and they captured eye tracking data from 300 different users outdoors. I think they bribed them with a coffee or something like that. And that helped them to get lots and lots and lots of images of what people's eyes look like when they're outdoors in the sun. And then they did some of that clever Swedish elf stuff that I don't actually know what goes on, to actually take that data and turn it into something that made for usable eye tracking outdoors. I'm just conscious of the time, so I'm going to whiz through this. So the outdoor eye tracking has come to the i13 of the PCI. It's firmware and software update, so you don't have to do anything. Does it work? We would say that the Tobii Dynavox eye trackers and the i-series and the PCI now perform well in outdoor eye tracking for most users. There will still be some people that it doesn't work well for. So it's definitely worth a test. So we're finding about 80% of people who can eye track indoors are still able to eye track outdoors. Previously, that was 0%. So it's a massive improvement. But there are still some people who do struggle. And I would say, in a total arbitrary scale, let's just say, because eye tracking indoors is better than eye tracking outdoors. If you were a 10 out of 10 eye tracker, you might be an 8 out of 10 eye tracker outdoors in bright sunlight. If you were an 8 out of 10 eye tracker indoors, you might be a 6 out of 10 eye tracker outdoors. However, if you're a 4 out of 10 eye tracker on this arbitrary scale, and then you go outside and you become a 2 out of 10, that just might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. That means eye tracking outdoors doesn't work for you. Let me just have a look. Couple of tips about outdoor eye tracking. Different profiles and recalibrating can help with outdoor performance. And wherever possible, you'll see in this image, the user's wearing a cap. So do try and throw shade on the user's face, umbrella, a cap, or whatever you have handy. I'll just show you some examples. So I took these videos on the day that the new eye tracker was, the software was updated on the eye tracker. So it was the same device, but the firmware and software were updated. And I took my i-series outside. So you can see the track status window there with the dots that show it's finding my eyes. And this is not staged, but the second I go outside, bang, those eyes are lost. There's no hope of me being able to do any eye tracking outdoors. If I go to the next video, however, you'll see after the update, I'm able to go outside and go around the garden, and I would be able to do my eye tracking. And as an example of that eye tracking outdoors, this is in my garden. Nice sunny day. Sun's not very high, unfortunately, but it's definitely sunny. And I don't know if you can see on the reflection, I'm not wearing a cap, and maybe I should have been.
Brighter days are coming.
Okay, so you'll see that that works. There's a couple of videos I'm not going to have time to show. I'll just show this one just to show it's kind of not just me. So I'll go to, this is Charlie Danger, who at the time was working at the Barnsley Assistive Technology team. He's now working at the Children's Trust, I believe. But from 3 minutes 50, I think this is where he takes the device outside.
Outside. Okay. Right, now we'll try outside. So, back outside, got my cap on, got the IS5 camera with the gibbon up gaze, and I can see already on the track status window, if we look in there, you can see my eyes are there. Before that wasn't happening. So now let's just see if I can type anything. So I'm just going to go back to my speak. As you can see, I'm outdoors. It's probably about as sunny as it was before. Maybe a little bit less, but the difference is quite something.
Okay. Was I showing my sound there? Sorry, I don't know if I... Were you getting the sound, guys?
Yes, we are, yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of me and professionals, but Yeah, we've got some user feedback. I finally have a voice outside. I've been waiting for this day for a very long time. The power to talk outside is huge. It's so important. Oh, I can't see this now. Oh, I can't see because of the Zoom thing, but someone else. That's Kevin using his eye tracker, writing his memoirs outside and enjoying country music. This is Becky. For the first time, I can talk outside. I can talk to my friends and family outside using eye gaze. I'm now not reliant on a communication partner for help. The new eye gaze device drivers mean that I can do my studies outside and enjoy the sunshine and fresh air. I can also access my social media outside too. So it's really, really enabling users. We do have some tips. So separate calibrations might help between indoors and outdoors. You're always going to experience better performance when situated in the shade rather than in direct sunlight. Shading the user's eyes with a hat or a cap in direct sunlight will have a significant positive impact on performance. You might also, if you are struggling, if you're one of those people where it kind of tips you over the balance, if you're using small letter keyboards, you might want to, when you go outside, use a large key keyboard or something like that. Couple of images that talk about how the tips on getting the most out of eye tracking outside. So you'll see this user sitting in the shade. We are telling you shade is better than full sun. So the absolute best place to use eye tracking outdoors is in the shade. If you have the sun straight in front of you, it can be problematic because there's a lot of light exposure to your face, making it harder for the tracker to find the eyes and calculate the position. You're also likely to be squinting because of the sun in your eyes. However, one little add-on here, that little cap, the moment you put on a hat or somebody shades your face, it becomes a good position. The hat throws your shade on the eyes and the tracker's facing away from the sun, meaning that it's not exposed to direct sunlight. You'll also have a good view of the screen as it'll be free from glare. Direct sunlight from the side isn't optimal as one side of your face is exposed to sunlight, and it might shine the sun into the eye tracker itself, so shining into the camera. That's what we've got to kind of avoid. So putting a hat on is going to help with that, but do try and angle your device so the sun isn't shining directly onto the eye tracker or the camera within the eye tracker. So like I say, if you can position yourself in such a way that the tracker avoids direct sunlight, the worst position is having the sun in your back, unless you are shading the eye tracker with your body. One of the issues there is the light is just streaming into the eye tracker camera. So don't have the sun behind you unless you can somehow shade the eye tracker camera. But I think the biggest issue is you're probably going to struggle to read the screen because you're just going to get so much glare from the sun. So our top tips for successful outdoor eye tracking: shade is always better, and if you are in direct sunlight, always wear a hat. So just to summarize, in terms of the new I series, because this was a focus on the new I series, it's lighter, faster, tougher, louder, smarter. It comes with the accessible apps, Windows Hello. It supports lots of access methods. It's durable, drop tested. It's a fast device with the partner window for communication and comes with all those value added, including outdoor eye tracking. And that's the new I series.